6 News at 10 starts right now.
We have an update tonight on a story that horrified the community this week. Birmingham police have arrested 3 people as they investigate the shooting that killed a 21-year-old mother.
Your reporter James Giles covered the press conference about that shooting at the Monarch Ridge Apartments. He's live and on your side with the latest tonight. James.
Yeah, Steve, Brittany, I asked police what started the fight and shooting that killed Asia Poole, and they did not answer. But they did make it clear that these arrests may not be the last.
This hoe trying to speed off in the car. Roll! Oh, Jesus!
What if I told you that hundreds of people watched a murder happen in real time and nobody could stop it? Birmingham, Alabama, Monarch Ridge Apartments. Multiple Facebook live streams rolling as a simple fistfight exploded into 160 rounds of gunfire. Asia Poole came to fight over a man. Jania Hendricks was waiting, but when the shooting started, it wasn't about either of them anymore. It was about survival. Moving on to how a social media beef became one of the most documented mass shootings in recent history. Before we get into it, have you seen how online drama can spiral out of control in your own community? Your engagement helps us reach more people with these stories. Welcome to Shadowed Crimes TV, where we examine domestic violence and crimes that happen between people in relationships. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Let's get into it. Asia Poole was 21 years old, and girl, she was going through it. Just 7 days before this shooting, she had buried her boyfriend, the father of her 4-year-old daughter. 7 days. That's barely enough time to process what happened, let alone explain to a toddler why daddy's not coming home anymore. Grief hits different when you've got a child depending on you. You're supposed to be strong for them while you're falling apart inside. But Asia wasn't just dealing with loss. She was also caught up in online drama with a 19-year-old named Jania Hendricks. The issue? A man. We still don't know his name. It's been kept out of the public records, but his existence alone was enough to start a war between these 2 women. Like, how does someone you're beefing with over a man become more important than healing with your child? Jania Hendricks was barely out of high school, just 19 years old, and she was deep in this conflict too. She had her own circle, her brother Justin Hendricks, a friend named Taylor McLeod, people who were riding for her no matter what. On Asia's side, she had friends who'd been watching the online back and forth, hyping her up, telling her not to let some teenager disrespect her. Now, Monarch Ridge Apartments sits in Birmingham, Alabama, a city that's no stranger to violence. The crime rate there runs way higher than the national average, and this particular complex had seen its share of incidents. They had surveillance cameras installed throughout the property, which sounds good on paper. But here's the thing, those cameras weren't connected to Birmingham's real-time crime center. So when things popped off, dispatch couldn't monitor what was happening as it developed. The cameras were recording, sure, but nobody was watching in real time.
The cameras do work and their footage is available, so we were able to access that to help further our investigation, but there again, they were supposed to be feeding into our real-time crime center.
And again, Chief Thurman says they're still investigating and could arrest additional people. Now, if you do have information, come forward. You can even do it anonymously if you call Crime Stoppers.
In the days leading up to the shooting, Asia and Jania were going at it heavy on social media. What started as private messages turned into public posts, insults, threats, screenshots being shared, friends jumping into the comments, picking sides, adding fuel. Social media does that. It takes something that could have been handled quietly and turns it into a performance. Every insult needed to be public. Every threat had to be seen. And every escalation was witnessed by dozens of people who could have told them to chill, but instead just watched and waited to see what would happen next. Asia was navigating an impossible emotional storm. She's grieving her child's father, dealing with the pressure of being a single parent now, and simultaneously fighting an online war over another man. Grief don't follow logic. It makes you angry when you should be sad. It makes you reckless when you should be careful. And when you mix that grief with the pressure of performing for an online audience, you've got someone making decisions they'd never make under normal circumstances. Jania wasn't innocent in all this either. She was young, yeah, but she was in grown folks' business, and she had people around her ready to ride. Her brother Justin was involved. Taylor McLeod was in the mix. Even a 17-year-old would eventually get caught up in what was about to happen. Everybody had their phones out, everybody was talking big online, and nobody seemed to realize they were building towards something that couldn't be undone. After days of going back and forth on Facebook, Asia made a decision. She was done typing, she was done with the comments and the subliminal posts. She wanted to see Jania face to face. So on that evening, she pulled up to Monarch Ridge Apartments, and she didn't come alone. She brought friends, people who'd been following the drama online, people who were ready to back her up. This wasn't gonna be a private conversation. This was a public showdown, and everybody knew it. Jania was ready too. She had her support system there, family members, friends, people who weren't about to let Asia roll up without answering for all that online talk. The parking lot became an arena. Residents started coming out of their apartments because word had spread. Something was about to go down, and in today's world, that means phones come out immediately. Multiple people started going live on Facebook. This wasn't just gonna be a fight that people heard about later. This was entertainment in real time. Viewers watching from home could see the tension building. Two groups of people facing off, voices getting louder. That moment right before everything explodes. Asia and Jania squared off in the middle of that parking lot. The words they'd been typing for days were now being shouted face to face. It didn't take long before the pushing started, then the punches. These were two angry young women throwing wild shots while their friends shouted and recorded. Under normal circumstances, this would have ended with some bruises, maybe a ripped shirt, and a viral video that people would talk about for a week. But nothing about this situation was normal. As the fight went on, more people got involved. Friends jumped in to help their side. What started as one-on-one became a group brawl in seconds. The Facebook live streams kept rolling, capturing every moment. People watching from home were commenting in real time, sharing the video, calling their friends to watch. This was drama unfolding live, and the audience was growing by the second. Then something shifted. Someone decided fists weren't enough. In a community where guns are unfortunately too common, someone made the choice to go get a weapon. The live streamers kept filming. Viewers watching could see people running toward cars. You could hear voices talking about getting guns. You could watch as a simple fight transformed into something way more dangerous. Girl, at this point, anybody with sense should have been running. But that's not how it works when you're caught up in the moment, when your pride is on the line, when hundreds of people are watching and waiting to see if you're gonna back down. Asia was still there. She could have left after the initial fight. She could have gotten in her car and driven home to her daughter who'd already lost her father, but she stayed. Within minutes, What started as two women fighting over a man had turned into multiple vehicles, multiple weapons, and multiple people about to make decisions that would destroy lives forever. The Facebook live streams continued rolling, about to document American gun violence in real time. Residents who'd come outside to watch a fight were now realizing they needed to take cover. Children were being pulled inside, people were dropping to the ground, and Asia Poole was still in that parking lot, caught up in the chaos she'd come to create. The shooting began suddenly, but once it started, it didn't stop. Over 160 rounds of ammunition were fired in just a few minutes. Think about that. Nearly 3 shots every single second. The sound was deafening, echoing off the apartment buildings, sending families scrambling for safety. This wasn't one person losing control. This was multiple shooters firing from multiple vehicles. This was coordinated chaos. The Facebook live streams captured everything. Muzzle flashes lighting up the darkness, the rapid-fire sound of gunshots overlapping each other, people screaming. Others diving behind cars trying to find cover anywhere they could. Viewers watching from home were witnessing a mass shooting unfold in real time, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. Asia Poole was still in that parking lot when the bullets started flying. According to witness accounts and the video evidence that would later be analyzed, she was trying to get away. She was running. The woman who had come looking for a fight was now running for her life, but she didn't make it. A bullet hit her in the back as she tried to escape the confrontation she had started. Let me tell you something, in her final moments, Asia wasn't fighting over a man anymore. She wasn't worried about her reputation or what people would say online. She was just trying to survive, probably thinking about that 4-year-old daughter waiting at home. The same little girl who just lost her father was about to lose her mother too. The devastating irony of it all. Asia Poole, who had buried her boyfriend just 1 week earlier, died running away from a fight over another man. That child went from having 2 parents to having none in the span of 7 days.
This hoe trying to speed off in the car. Whoa! Oh, Jesus!
But the shooting didn't stop when Asia fell. The gunfire continued. Another person got hit. Demarion Rankins was shot in the leg during the chaos. Bullets were tearing through car doors, shattering apartment windows, punching holes through walls where families were hiding. Children were crying. Parents were frantically calling 911. And through it all, those Facebook live streams just kept rolling. Residents later described it as sounding like a war zone. This wasn't a quick burst of gunfire. This was sustained shooting that went on for minutes. Multiple clips being emptied. People reloading and firing again. The kind of violence that makes you understand you're not safe anywhere, not even in your own home. Apartment walls that were supposed to protect families were being punctured by bullets. Windows exploded inward, sending glass everywhere. Residents who'd been sitting on their couches or putting their kids to bed suddenly found themselves flat on the floor, praying the next bullet wouldn't come through their wall. And the Facebook Live viewers, they watched all of this happen in real time, commenting and sharing while people's lives were being destroyed. Emergency responders arrived to find complete chaos. Asia Poole was pronounced dead at the scene. Demarion Rankins was rushed to the hospital with a gunshot wound to his leg. The apartment complex looked like a battlefield. Bullet casings everywhere, cars riddled with holes, windows shattered, blood on the pavement. The shooters had already fled, leaving behind a traumatized community and investigators with the massive task of figuring out who was responsible for turning a fistfight into a massacre. But here's the thing, they had something most investigations don't have. They had multiple camera angles. They had Facebook Live footage from different perspectives. They had everything documented. Birmingham police walked into a crime scene that was both a nightmare and a gift. A nightmare because of the scale of violence, over 160 rounds fired in a residential area, one person dead, another injured, and an entire community traumatized. But a gift because everything had been recorded. The apartment complex had surveillance cameras that captured the incident, and multiple people had streamed the whole thing live on Facebook. Now those surveillance cameras, they recorded everything, but here's the problem, they weren't connected to Birmingham's real-time crime center. So when the 911 calls started coming in about shots fired, dispatchers couldn't pull up the cameras and see what was happening as it developed. The technology was there, it just wasn't being used the way it should have been. But at least the footage existed, and investigators could access it after the fact. What they had that was unprecedented were those Facebook live streams. These weren't security camera recordings that someone had to request and download. These were live broadcasts that had been watched by hundreds of people in real time. Different angles of the same event. People filming from their apartments, from the parking lot, from their cars. The entire incident was documented from multiple perspectives. Investigators started piecing it together. This wasn't random violence that erupted out of nowhere. The online conflict between Asia Poole and Jania Hendricks had been building for days. Screenshots of their arguments existed. Other people's comments were documented. Friends and family members had been getting increasingly involved, taking sides, adding to the tension. Social media had turned what should have been a private disagreement between two people into a public performance that required a dramatic ending. The hard work was identifying exactly who fired shots. You had multiple people, multiple vehicles, multiple weapons, but those Facebook live streams provided the roadmap. Investigators could match faces to names. They could see who ran to which car. They could track vehicles as they left the scene. The footage was so clear that there wasn't much room for anyone to deny what happened or claim they weren't there. Within days, arrests started happening. Jania Hendricks was charged with murder. Her brother Justin Hendricks was arrested too. Taylor McClade faced charges. Even a 17-year-old got picked up, showing just how many different people had been pulled into this violence. These weren't hardened criminals with long rap sheets. These were young people who made terrible decisions in a moment of anger. The charges were serious. Murder, attempted murder for shooting Demarion Rankins, weapons charges that could stack up to decades in prison. And because of that Facebook Live evidence, defense attorneys weren't going to have much wiggle room. You can't argue about what happened when hundreds of people watched it live and the video still exists. But the investigation revealed something bigger than just who pulled triggers. It exposed how modern conflicts develop and escalate in ways that didn't exist even 10 years ago. Social media provided the platform for the initial dispute to go public. Live streaming documented every step of the escalation, and easy access to firearms meant that when things went from fists to weapons, people died. The detective work also highlighted systemic problems. Birmingham has one of the highest violent crime rates in the country, significantly above the national average. Gun violence is a particular issue in the city. Law enforcement is dealing with easy access to firearms, social media platforms that let conflicts escalate at lightning speed, and communities where handling disputes privately has been replaced by public confrontations designed for online audiences. What made this case stand out wasn't just the tragedy itself, it was how thoroughly everything was documented. Most gun violence happens quickly with limited witnesses. making it hard for investigators to piece together exactly what went down. But the Facebook live streams from Monarch Ridge gave law enforcement an unprecedented window into how social media beef can turn into real-world bloodshed. They could see the online arguments. They could watch the in-person confrontation. They could track the exact moment weapons were introduced. They had a complete timeline that most cases never provide. And for the community, they were left dealing with trauma that extended far beyond the immediate victims. Residents now had to live with the memory of witnessing a mass shooting in their own parking lot. Children who heard those 160 rounds would associate that sound with terror for the rest of their lives. Families who once felt reasonably safe in their homes now understood how quickly their neighborhood could turn into a war zone. The arrest came fast once investigators had reviewed all that footage. Jania Hendricks, just 19 years old, was charged with murder in connection with Asia Poole's death. Think about that. A teenager facing murder charges that could put her away for life. Her brother Justin Hendricks got arrested. Taylor McLeod was picked up. A 17-year-old kid was also brought in, showing just how many people from different age groups got caught up in this mess. The legal system moved forward with building cases against each person involved. But here's the reality. With all those Facebook live streams and surveillance footage, the prosecution had a strong hand. Defense attorneys could argue about intent, about who fired which shots, about their client's level of involvement, but they couldn't argue about what happened because it was all right there on video for anyone to see. Jania Hendricks was also charged with theft of property for allegedly taking Asia's car after the shooting. According to the evidence, after Asia was shot and killed, her vehicle was taken from the scene. So on top of murder charges, there was this additional charge that showed just how chaotic everything had become. The attempted murder charge for shooting Demarion Rankins added another layer. This man got caught in the crossfire and ended up shot in the leg. He later spoke about how the whole situation started from social media beef over a shared love interest. But police couldn't confirm all the details of his account. They just knew he was an innocent victim who got hit during those 160 rounds. The courtroom proceedings revealed the devastating consequences of decisions made in minutes. Multiple families were now torn apart. Jania's family had to watch their daughter and son face serious charges. Asia's family had lost their loved one and now had to raise her 4-year-old daughter. That little girl's grandmother or other relatives were suddenly responsible for a child who'd lost both parents in the span of a week. The legal process also forced everyone to confront uncomfortable questions. At what point does being present at a shooting make you criminally responsible? If you didn't pull a trigger but you were part of the group that came armed, are you guilty of murder? These weren't abstract legal theories. These were real young people whose futures hung in the balance. The Facebook Live evidence became central to the prosecution's case. Jurors could watch the escalation happen in real time. They could see who was there, who was aggressive, who brought weapons, who fired shots. It was the kind of evidence that's almost impossible to refute. Defense attorneys had to work with what they had, but what they had was clients who were clearly visible in footage that had been seen by thousands of people. Throughout the legal proceedings, the broader community watched and waited. Some people felt the charges were appropriate, lives were destroyed, and someone needed to be held accountable. Others argued that these were young people who made terrible mistakes but didn't deserve to have their entire futures erased. But at the end of the day, Asia Poole was dead, and somebody had to answer for that.
They are also facing attempted murder charges for shooting this man, Demarion Rankins, in the leg during the incident where police say 168 shots were fired. I talked with Rankins Thursday, who told me the whole thing started from social media beef about a shared love interest.
The room is very small. It's literally so little. Somebody mad about somebody. This ain't theirs. Can't get mad at somebody that's ain't choice.
But police would not confirm Rankin's account. Authorities charged 19-year-old Janiah Hendricks with theft of property, saying she stole Poole's car after fighting the woman just before the shooting.
When she was like, her car getting took, I'm running out after her car to get her car. After they don't run into the car, they was shooting, so I really can't tell who was shooting back.
Police say they pieced together who did what thanks to cameras at the apartment complex and a Facebook live stream of the entire thing.
We'll continue to investigate until we can find everyone involved.
So here we are at the end of this story, and what are we left with? A 4-year-old girl growing up without either parent. A 21-year-old woman dead in a parking lot over a man whose name we still don't know. A 19-year-old facing murder charges. Multiple young people looking at decades in prison. And a community that had to witness a mass shooting in their own backyard. Let me tell you something. This whole tragedy was preventable. Not just at one point, but at multiple points along the way. If Asia had chosen to stay home and grieve with her daughter instead of engaging in online drama, if friends had encouraged both women to let it go instead of hyping up the confrontation, if the dispute had stayed private instead of becoming a public performance, if weapons hadn't been introduced to what should have been a minor disagreement, any of these different choices could have changed everything. But here's what makes this case particularly important. It exposes the dangerous combination of social media, grief, pride, and easy access to guns. Asia Poole was dealing with the death of her child's father, which likely messed with her judgment and made her more willing to engage in conflicts she would normally ignore. Social media turned a private beef into a public spectacle that required a dramatic ending. And guns turned what should have been a fist fight into a massacre. The Facebook live streams serve as a permanent reminder of how quickly situations can get out of control. They also show how technology that was designed to connect people and share experiences can be weaponized to escalate conflicts and document violence. Those videos are still out there, still being watched, still serving as evidence of what happens when we choose pride over peace. For Birmingham, this shooting was part of a larger pattern. The city's violent crime rate remains significantly higher than the national average. Law enforcement continues to deal with gun violence that tears through communities and destroys families. And social media keeps providing the platform for conflicts to escalate at speeds that didn't exist a generation ago. The systemic problems this case revealed aren't going away. Surveillance cameras that aren't properly connected to real-time monitoring. Social media platforms that don't have effective systems for detecting disputes heading toward violence. Communities where traditional conflict resolution has been replaced by public confrontations designed for online audiences. These are issues that require solutions beyond just arresting people after tragedies happen. Asia Poole's daughter is the real victim in all of this. She lost her father, then lost her mother 7 days later, all because adults couldn't find a way to resolve their differences without violence. That little girl's future will be shaped by decisions that were made before she was old enough to understand what was happening. She'll grow up with questions about why her parents aren't here, and the answers aren't going to make any of it easier. For Janiah Hendricks and the others facing charges, their lives are forever changed too. Whether they end up convicted or not, they'll carry this with them. At 19 years old, Janiah is facing the possibility of spending most of her life in prison. Her brother Justin, Taylor McLeod, the 17-year-old, all of them made choices in a few minutes that they can't take back. And that unnamed man at the center of it all, he probably had no idea his existence was causing this much drama. He was likely living his life, unaware that two women were preparing to fight over him, unaware that the fight would end in death and destroy multiple families. His presence alone was enough to ignite a conflict that left one person dead and several others facing serious prison time. The lesson here isn't complicated. No social media dispute is worth dying over. No man is worth killing over. No amount of online reputation is more important than your child's future or your own life. But knowing that and actually applying it when you're caught up in the emotion, the grief, the pressure to perform for an audience, that's where people keep getting it wrong. As we close out this episode, I want you to think about the conflicts in your own life or in your community. Have you seen situations escalating online that could turn into something dangerous? Are there beefs happening right now that need to be shut down before they go too far? Because the truth is, we all live in the same social media environment that contributed to this tragedy. We all face pressure to respond publicly to disrespect. We all know people who'd rather win an argument than walk away. The challenge is recognizing when online conflicts are heading toward real-world consequences and having the wisdom to choose differently. It's about valuing your children's future over your pride. It's about understanding that you can't win if you're dead or in prison. It's about learning from tragedies like this one so they don't keep happening. What do you think could have prevented this? Have you seen similar situations in your own community? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story affected you, take a moment to subscribe to Shadowed Crimes TV and hit that notification bell. Your support helps us keep bringing you these important stories. Remember, behind every case we cover are real people who made real choices with real consequences. Asia Poole wasn't just a statistic. She was a young mother who made fatal mistakes while dealing with grief and anger. Jania Hendricks isn't just a defendant. She's a teenager whose life got permanently altered by a few minutes of violence.